Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist, and stick around for this one. This is a fairly common myth, the idea of using rock salt in a shot shell for less than lethal home defense. This is the stuff of popular myth. I mean, someone probably used it, someone may have thought it was a good idea and scared someone away with it and was, yeah, this is awesome, rock salt. In Kill Bill, there's a scene where the main character is shot with rock salt at a very close distance. She goes flying off her feet and just drops with a very painful wound with rock salt, and everyone likes the idea of rock salt. Now, reality, very different. So in this video, I'm going to be going through 3 main points why you want to avoid this at all costs, why it's an awful, stupid idea to load a shell with any kind of salt. Especially salt is a terrible idea. Let's start with number 1. It simply does not work. Look, I'm not going to be shooting it myself. You can see Paul's Harold fantastic channel in which he actually shoots rock salt, and he actually proves that at 10 meters, there's a good chance it's not even going to be penetrating a t-shirt at 10 yards away. So if it's not penetrating a cotton t-shirt 10 yards away, you can imagine how effective that thing will be. I mean, at the very least, we can say that it's not nearly as effective as some people think. So it's going to be depending on exactly what kind of salt you're shooting, how big or small those chunks are. There's a lot of variables, but in general, it just doesn't work as people picture it in their minds, causing this huge red wound rash thing that itches a lot and hurts like hell, and the scoundrels are going to be taking off and never coming back because you shot them with rock salt. Chances are, if you're finding yourself in a dangerous situation and you shoot someone with this, they're not even going to be noticing. I mean, there's fairly a good chance of someone being scared away by the shot itself, and this having no effect whatsoever, and having no impact in that equation. But as effective as this is, forget about it. It's just awfully bad and just terrible at doing this thing that people fantasize it's good at. Number 2 is you're actually loading your gun with salt, and there's no way of explaining how stupid that is. Salt rusts metal. Guns are made of carbon steel that rusts relatively easily, especially if you put salt in them. Salt is one of the worst enemies of steel in general. Even if you had a gun made of stainless steel, it would be a bad idea. But having said that, there's basically no shotgun made of stainless steel. You have some marine coated guns and such, but purposefully loading a gun with salt, it is an awful idea. The moment you shoot that thing, you're going to be rushing and trying to remove any speck of salt from your gun, because if not, you're going to be ruining. A gun like this one, Mossberg 500, I mean, it's the stuff of nightmares to imagine having salt in there. Not only that, just use your common sense a little bit. You're going to be opening this up, putting salt in there, maybe coating it with wax or crimping it down or whatever, and you're going to be leaving this there in your gun loaded, waiting for that the girl's boyfriend or whatever dropping by, or someone stealing a damn tomato from your yard or whatever it is that would justify you shooting them with rock salt load or whatever this is. Imagine how time goes by, that is sitting in your gun, that starts leaking and doing its job, chemistry doing its thing, and rusting your gun from the inside even before you even fire this thing. There's a huge chance that some little grains of salt will start. I don't even want to keep this close to my gun. Imagine how terrible it would be to have a couple of these loaded in there and rusting your springs and the inside of your gun. Just awful, awful. Maybe that's one of the things that's more cringe-worthy of this entire idea. Number 3, finally, is that you're still shooting someone with a firearm, and the legal implications of this is huge. I mean, you'll find yourself in a huge legal problem because you use a lethal weapon. I mean, even if you loaded it with rock salt. No, judge, I just try to scare the boy away and use a firearm for that. It's gonna be landing you in legal hell if you do that. There's also the possibility of things going awfully wrong and you loading this up, and salt is not exactly ballistic. There's not much stability here. It may spread completely and break apart and do absolutely zero effect at 5-10 yards, or it may well solid. Let's suppose you leave it in a closet, or there's just humidity in general. You live in Florida and this salt solidifies into a big chunk of rock, and you shoot a kid with this and it goes right through the kid as if it was a slug, then you will be dealing with hell as well. So it is completely unpredictable the way this will end up behaving, few weeks or months down the road. There's pretty much no prediction if this solidifies, if this just breaks apart, if it's fine stuff that you had in there and zero effect other than rusting your gun. It is just a bad idea, especially when you have actual less than lethal ammunition available. Why do something this stupid and this risky and this unpredictable when you have, plastic or rubber slugs and buckshot to load in your gun? In general, it's the kind of thing you want to be very wary and careful about. Understand your laws depending on where you live, if it's a good idea or not. In general, a firearm is lethal force, and it has to be used proportionally. The idea of just blasting someone because you don't like them, or it's even playing devil's advocate. Why are you shooting someone with something that is lethal but it's non-lethal, so you're really not all that scared about that person so as to use a lethal ammunition in your gun? So why the hell are you using a firearm in the first place? A firearm should be used only when you're absolutely certain that your life is at risk and you're willing to take someone else's life so as to preserve your own. That's basically the concept in most jurisdictions in terms of using a firearm, which is widely considered lethal force, unless you are, of course, anti-riot police. And even those guys are dealing with legal hell these days in terms of using less than lethal ammunition. Imagine how it's going to be going up for you. So you have that available. I've been in the situation of seeing people rush into a gun store. I mean, I was sitting there in a gun store in 2001 when store owners came running to the gun store asking for ammunition. They sold out the less than lethal stuff. They were using those as to protect their shops, their businesses, and I guess that someone may have used it effectively. So the idea, guys, is that this is mostly used by anti-riot police, using it at a certain distance, especially with a plastic buckshot. It's intended to be not shot directly into someone because it can be lethal. It's not non-lethal, it's less than lethal. There's still a possibility of someone getting killed with this, and it's been the case. If you shoot that load at point blank, all those plastic pieces are going to be going inside the body, and you may end up killing someone. It's going to be penetrating, pretty deep if you're not careful at the distance you're using, and it's going to be depending on each load. Some of these are like a single rubber ball, and it kind of it's like a heavyweight punch, and it has a real punch to it, so it's pretty effective at that traumatic effect. But you have to know exactly what you're using and the way it's supposed to be used. But going back to this, loading a shell with this stuff is really a bad idea. I don't care whose grandpa used it back in the day. It's just not something that's recommended. There's lots of stupid things that were done back in the day, as they say, and that doesn't mean you should keep doing them. Okay, folks, if you're interested in this sort of thing, I have my books available in Amazon, following links below. I do talk in Street Survival Skills about improvising some of these the cut shells, which it's an old trick that's been around forever, cutting the plastic, or back in the day the paper, and that keeping the shot together at greater distances, and kind of like improvising a somewhat of a slug. It's really not a slug, it's not the same effect, but it's going to be having a lot more penetration, a lot more downrange. So if you have to improvise, that would be one of those things. Again, if you can get slugs, if you can get a single projectile, and you have those commercially available pretty much everywhere, go with that. It's always better, especially if it's about less than lethal. Don't try to improvise that with salt. Horrible idea. See you on our next video, folks. Have an awesome day. Take care.